we were succeeding on behalf of our clients. I was enjoying the work again. I'd gone from really feeling that pain of hammering the phones, chaining myself to my desk, writing tons of tailored emails, to now, waking up and wanting to work. And also our prospects seem to be enjoying the process a whole lot more. So it was a sort of win-win-win really that we'd come across.
Hello and welcome back everybody to the Sales Career Podcast. Today is another episode in English because I'm talking to Jordan. Hi Jordan.
Hello, thank you for having me, Tyrone.
Welcome, and I guess you wouldn't understand if I ask all the questions in German, so let's stick with English. And let's kick it off, right? I think we have a lot to cover today. We were talking on LinkedIn before, so actually I met Jordan on LinkedIn. We bumped into each other. I don't know why we bumped into each other, and then we were like, hey, you do social selling stuff. Hey, you have a brand. You are in sales, right? Let's chat. And that's how we got here. And now we are recording a podcast episode because actually Jordan's background is also in sales. But before we go there, Jordan, I think you see it coming. If you could time travel and talk to your younger self, which advice would you give yourself?
Stop trying to fit a corporate mould, simply.
Why?
I think that I've put so much pressure on myself in the past to sort of fill this grey suit, briefcase sort of vision. And I think that, in the modern world, people buy from people and people want to see your true self. So, one of the greatest things I've done in both my content and, just generally is bringing my whole self to work, and I'm enjoying it a lot more.
Mm-hmm. Not leaving something outside because you think you have to fit into a certain picture, right?
Exactly.
Got it. Cool. Then Jordan, help us out. Who are you? What are you doing?
Yeah, so Jordan Abbott, I am currently a B2B social influence and interaction advisor at Supero, which is an agency that I started up with my dad.
Nice. Can you please tell us what this title means or this company name means? What are you basically doing?
Yeah, indeed. So the title in itself is a mix of a sales role as well as a trainer. So one of the things that we do is provide social selling training programs. And it's a really interesting balance because the selling, being down in the trenches, gives you those war stories so that you can train better. And then the training also gives you those success stories to help build your confidence when you're going down into the trenches to sell. So it's a really nice sort of cohesive role.
Nice, yeah. I like how that both works together somehow. But we'll cover that later down the road. Let's go back to your early days. What did you actually do before you went into sales?
So I've done a whole host of things. I think my earliest memory of work probably comes in the shape of being very unhappy with my £2.50 a week pocket money that my parents gave me. So as a result of that, I started different sort of seasonal businesses. And thinking back on it, it was all sort of door-to-door sales. So I was probably about 10 or 11. And, in the summer, I'd get all the car washing equipment, put it in a wheelbarrow, and then walk around my neighbourhood and see who wanted their car cleaned. I learned pretty quickly that I needed to laminate my pricing sheet so it would be waterproof. And then it's sort of spring, I think it was general gardening and landscaping, sort of planting some bulbs and flowers for neighbours. And then autumn was cleaning people's drives of snow or leaves, respectively, dependent on the season. And then when I came of legal working age in the UK, I got a job at a local hotel, and the town that I live in is a quarry sort of town. So I'd have to get up at 4:30, 5 a.m. To go and serve breakfast to the quarry workers, which was always interesting. because they were, the majority of the time, very grumpy, and I'm quite a bubbly person. So I learned how to say piss off, excuse my French, in most Eastern European languages, which was fun. And then I've worked in retail, a little bit more hospitality, also telesales, and I trained as an actor, believe it or not.
Wow, how did that happen?
Well, so I've always been fascinated, always loved acting, big film buff. And it came to the point where I was going away to university, and it was either go to business school, be responsible, or follow the dream and go to acting school. And my dad was super supportive. He basically said, look, there's a whole load of skills that are transferable from acting to business, not so many the other way around. So, follow your dream.
Nice. Where did that come from? Do you know why he had this mentality that he thinks? Because I think it's something that is not really common, that people say from acting you can take it into business. Did he have some background in that?
No, not at all. He was a salesperson in sort of leadership at the time. I think my parents, I've been quite blessed. They've always been very supportive. My mum's very creative. So I think it was, go and follow your dream, make it work. And if it doesn't work, then you've got other options. Mm-hmm.
I love that. Actually, that explains a lot why I see your content being the way it is right now, because I see like a whole lot of videos where your dog is playing the guitar, and it's like a whole lot of videos where I think like, okay, this guy must be somehow skilled in that area. Did you get that from there, or did you recently learn this like editing skills and stuff like that?
Yeah, no, it's all from sort of my time training as an actor. Trying to film little scenes and editing it together to sort of build up my portfolio, and it's just been a little bit of a passion of mine, and I'm glad now that I can bring that into my role in sales.
It's so funny that this actually is now a skill for, like, let's say salespeople or social selling or something like that, where it's like, hey, short form videos really booming right now. And it's like, hey, I think I know how this works. Let me grab that and then make something out of it. I really love that. But let's dig a bit into the direction of your early sales career. You covered a bit of what you did before, but how did you actually land in sales then?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, I've always been fascinated by sales, partly because my dad was a salesperson. He'd spent 3 decades, or the best part of 3 decades, working for various MarTech vendors. Initially as a salesperson, then moving into senior leadership. And then the second thing, I'm a huge film buff, as I mentioned. So there's been a whole host of really great sales films, from Glengarry Glen Ross to Boiler Room, which, sort of looking back on it, they were essentially an education on how not to sell. But yeah, I knew pretty quickly that I wanted to get a sales role. And as I mentioned, I worked in telesales. So as soon as I had the opportunity, I got a telesales role, selling solar panels, PVC windows and doors, underfloor heating. It was basically just anything that the British government would give a tax rebate for, or a grant for, which, again, thinking back on it, that gave us that sort of crucial reason to call. You can save X amount of money, or, get a tax rebate. That was all B2C. And then I moved into the world of B2B, when I moved to a sort of Wi-Fi and connectivity provider. I thought things would be a lot better, and there would be less people yelling, at you and shouting rude words. But turns out it was fairly similar. There were a lot of grumpy small business owners in my area, and started again on the phones, and then moved into field sales. It was great. It was really fast paced, really cutthroat. I think the turnover was crazy high. It was like, if you didn't hit your weekly target, that was it. You were shown the door. So it was crazy. And again, I think the lesson that I learned throughout that period was, again, how not to sell. It was sort of really traditional sales methodology, very high pressure tactics, trying to force a decision out of someone, which, of course, as you know, doesn't work anymore. It sends people running for the hills.
Yeah, it's so funny that you actually come from this world, because I think people tend to think that when you are doing social selling or you are in this space, you actually are afraid of picking up the phone or something like that, because it's like easier to create videos and content and pitch people on LinkedIn and stuff like that. But actually it's the opposite for you, right? So you were in the trenches, you were cold calling a lot. And then can you tell me, you said something where it was like you hoped it would be less shouting, but it actually wasn't. Can you transfer a bit from how was that in like B2C selling, where you cold called people and told them like, hey, you can save tax money, and then you called B2B people? How was this like transition for yourself?
Yeah, it was interesting. So B2C, obviously you're calling someone's home, or we were calling people's home phones. So people could very easily sort of have their guard up from the off. I think at that point I played on my childhood sort of boyish charm. So if ever the wife of the family picked up, I knew that I had fairly okay chances, because I'd be very, sweet and charming. But then moving into B2B, that sort of went out the window, and it was again, I thought, okay, I'm moving into the more professional world, but people were still super rude. But yeah, I think it was just, I think the B2C period sort of built that basis of building the relationship in a short space of time, within trying to find some common ground within a matter of sort of seconds. And then the B2B space was definitely sort of leading with a bit more insight over the phone, at least, to buy myself a couple of extra seconds.
Mm-hmm. What would you say was easier, B2C or B2B, like telesales or like cold calling?
That's a really good question. I think I probably enjoyed the B2C a little bit more, purely because, a conversation could be started over anything. I actually started reading newspapers just so I knew what the headlines were, and I could sort of lead with that. And I was, 15 at the time. So yeah, I've moved into this sort of more complex world of B2C. I think I've brought that relationship building approach into my work, and I think it's crucial, because at the end of the day, people do buy from people.
Yeah. 100%. And I think it also speaks to what you said. You can bring your whole self to work, or to the phone, actually. And I can imagine, I did it for 2 weeks, but I haven't sold at scale to B2C. So I think there is an area where you can really bring yourself, because you don't have to act as if you were an expert in the B2B space, right? I think acting as if you are an expert in B2B is way different than saying, hey, I know something about how to save tax, because actually it's pretty easy. You just buy this thing and then you can sort of discount it from your tax. That's pretty easy, I guess.
Yeah.
But let's not go down that road, because I actually want to know a bit about how your career progressed then. You said you were like in this cutthroat environment and actually learning how not to do sales, and what happened then?
Yeah, so that was pre-university. And then I went to university, tried to make it as an actor, realised I didn't have the dedication to the craft.
What does that mean? Jordan, what does that mean, like not the dedication?
Yeah, so I'm a fairly sociable person. With what I didn't realise would be required with acting was, I thought, I like to play off people. I like to just get a scene on its feet and just discover there. But what I didn't realise was there's a lot a lot of character development that has to go on in the background to make that worthwhile. And it just I don't know. I think I was a little bit naive, in all honesty.
That it's more just play and fun than really hard work, maybe.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, I think so.
Okay, I see. So, okay, then, sorry, I interrupted you there. Go on.
Yeah, so following university, I went away travelling, to find myself. I had a great time, met a lot of great people, and it was fantastic. And then I was sort of starting to run out of money and thinking, okay, I need to come back home and join the world of work. And I'd actually met a girl prior to going travelling, and then we kept in contact, and she mentioned, oh, do you want to spend some time in France, in Paris? And I thought, yeah, I could do that. So I ended up in Paris, and I got, initially I was only meant to be here for sort of 3 months, I think I said. So I got some bar work, working as a waiter, and that was 4 years ago now, and I'm still here, and she's stuck with me.
That's a lucky story, I would say. Der Sales Career Podcast wird gesponsert von SDRs of Germany und Hire. Wie du weißt, bin ich schon lange Teil von SDRs of Germany und ein Riesenfan. SDRs of Germany ist nämlich die einzige deutschsprachige Sales Development Plattform, auf der du dich mit anderen Sellern austauschen, exklusive Events besuchen und deine Sales Skills weiterentwickeln kannst. Und mit Hire haben wir jetzt den perfekten Partner gefunden, um dir zusätzliche Karrieremöglichkeiten aufzuzeigen, die zu deinen Zielen passen. Und wenn du selbst noch Mitarbeitende für dein Sales-Team suchst, wirst du Hire lieben. Hire zeichnet sich nämlich durch enorme Geschwindigkeit im Recruiting-Prozess, faire Preise und sehr detaillierte Sales-Profile der Talente aus. Die Links zu SDRs of Germany und Hire findest du in der Beschreibung zu dieser Folge. And then, how did you find your track back into B2B world when you were in France and working as a bartender or something like that? Was there a point where you said like, okay, this is not working for me, I need to go back to B2B, or why did you make that decision then?
Yeah, well, look, the pandemic gave me that opportunity to sort of take a real long, hard look, decide whether I was happy, which I wasn't. I was happy being in France, but the work wasn't fulfilling, and whether I wanted to make a career out of it, which I didn't. And it was a bit of a sliding doors moment, because at the same time, my dad had basically decided he'd had enough of the corporate world, so he wanted to exit. And we'd always spoken about starting our own business. So we thought, what better time than right in the middle of a global pandemic?
Yay!
Indeed. So we took that leap, and we started life as an outsourced sales agency. So we'd win clients and then become an extension of their biz dev or sales team, depending on the scope of work. And look, that was fantastic for me, because we worked with a whole range of MarTech vendors. So I got a lot of exposure to what was actually possible, what tools were out there, how do they work together, how do they integrate, and what's actually possible for a modern marketer in terms of improving the customer experience. And there were a whole load of great mentors along the way that shared different insights, techniques, that I've definitely taken a few nuggets from. And things were going really well. We'd been doing that for 2 years, and then things were just going okay. And the reason being, we were sort of seeing this downward trend in the traditional sales and marketing methods. And we were sort of being pulled in a lead gen direction by clients. And of course, we didn't want to go there, because it would essentially put us right on the knife's edge. So that's actually how our social selling journey began, because we were sort of looking out, doing research on what the new way of selling was, so that we could, succeed on behalf, or be more successful on behalf of our clients. And we came across social selling and a business called DLA Ignite. We put ourselves through the social selling training, went on to implement that approach throughout Q2 and Q3 of last year, and we just sort of really found our rhythm with it. We were succeeding on behalf of our clients. I was enjoying the work again. I'd gone from really feeling that pain of hammering the phones, chaining myself to my desk, writing tons of tailored emails, to now, waking up and wanting to work. And also our prospects seemed to be enjoying the process a whole lot more. So it was a sort of win-win-win really that we'd come across social selling and put ourselves through the training. And then we'd sort of reached a bit of an inflection point in the sense of, do we continue down this old model that we used to work, this execution on behalf of our clients, or do we switch to an enablement mindset and actually provide the training that we'd been through and that we'd seen so much success in, and actually provide that to our clients and to other businesses? And we made that switch, and I'm really grateful that we did. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. You said something where it was like traditional sales, and then you were pulled into the direction of lead gen, and that wasn't the way you wanted to go. Can you explain a bit around that area?
Yeah, so it was sort of redefining the scope that we had with some clients to purely top of funnel sort of appointment setting for them. So, again, stripping away that relationship really, because it's just lead with insight, try and catch someone with a bit of bait, pull them in, get them on a call with someone. And it just sort of, I personally think that sort of breeds a bad experience for our prospects, because, they're sort of being thrown around like a hot potato. I want to engage with someone and really build that relationship.
Yeah. So before that, it was more like a round picture, like a full cycle maybe. And then they were saying, hey, do top of funnel things and just hand over the leads. And that was not the way you wanted to go. And how did you, and then you said you were somehow heard about social selling or something like that. Yeah. What was that moment where, is there anything you can remember where you said like, hey, social selling is actually a thing?
Yeah. So, I think the way we came across it was because my dad had worked with these two gentlemen, Adam Gray and Tim Hughes, and they'd started up their own business called DLA Ignite, providing the social selling training. And I think they'd had an initial conversation. This was probably about 6 months before we actually embarked on the training. And I started seeing more and more of their content, and it was like, oh, okay. And then, as I said, we embarked on the training in Q2. And, in all honesty, I'll hold my hands up. Throughout that first 6 months, I was only really dipping my toe in the water, because there was still something inside of me, that sort of corporate mold inside of me saying, oh, you need to do 100 dials a day, you need to send X amount of emails. So that was consuming a whole load of time, which was then taking away from the social activities that I could be doing, the relationship building activities that I could be doing. So it wasn't really until probably about October, November last year that something just clicked, and I was like, I need to fully commit to this. This is the new world. This is the way forward. And I think if I think why I'm so passionate about it, I think one, it works, right? Which is a massive sort of bonus, or really a definitive factor if you're carrying a number. And then secondly, I think it's more aligned to the way that our buyers buy in the modern world. So rather than sort of pushing the sausage through the sausage machine, we're actually able to build that real relationship with people, and then go on this sort of symbiotic journey of realizing the pains that they might be feeling, identifying potential solutions and where the commercial value is, and building trust along the way. And so by the end of the day, it's a mutually beneficial relationship. It's this sort of reciprocal relationship rather than just sort of standing on a soapbox.
I see. John, what does that actually mean in a day-to-day for someone that is actually doing social selling? Because I think, I know what social selling is, and I think most of the listeners will also know what it is. But let's go not into the direction of a definition, like what is social selling, but what does that mean in a day-to-day? So when you did social selling, before you maybe did the training, right? How were you selling on social? Was it, I guess it was not pitch slapping people, but something else. So tell us a bit about a day-to-day in social selling world.
Yeah, so prior to doing the training, it was very much pitch slapping.
Sure, we all did it.
Yeah, or building out these like 10, 12 touch, like that's just on LinkedIn, cadences that were, built around insight and, research and, all really time consuming. And then after the training, I think what has become my mantra is profile, connections, engagement, and publish. And those four things create this sort of virtuous circle, because initially you have to work on your profile. You need to make it engaging. You need to tell your story. Because if you think about it, if one of your prospects has the choice of two profiles, yours and your competitors, they're likely to spend more time on the one that they're enjoying more. So you want to make it really engaging, go a bit outside the box so that they do invest more time on yours. And by the end of the process, they feel that they know you better than your competitor, right? So the strength of your profile is really important, first step. Obviously, that then has a knock-on effect, a positive effect on your connection rate, right? The more attractive you look, your profile looks, the better your connection rate's going to be. The more connections you have, the more engagement you'll receive, likely. A network that's 5 times the size will receive 5 times the engagement if nothing else changes. But also the more engagement that you can give out to other people, because there's going to be a whole different range of content coming in that you can comment on, learn about. And obviously that by engaging, you're increasing your visibility. But also that variety of content will also inspire some of your own content. So that's going to have a positive effect on what you publish and the quality of what you publish. And then everything you publish, it leaves a permanent digital footprint on your profile, strengthening your profile. So that sort of completes the circle.
Cool. I can really see this like fueling each other somehow. But let's go even one step further down the how-to road. For someone that is actually wanting to start out, right? Because I think there are a lot of people that see social selling. They say like, hey, okay, I'm going to post 2 things now. And then it's like, 3 likes. I don't want to go that route. I need to hit my number. This is not working for me. Besides consistency, right? We all know that we need to keep on posting. I think that's pretty basic, but how do I actually balance? I need to hit my number and I need to have activity in the dashboard, and I want to build long-term social selling relationships. How do I balance this, and how do I actually make that transition into social selling if I maybe don't want to do the cold calling and cold emailing?
Yeah, so look, that's a great question, and that's not just a stereotypical salesperson. Oh, it's a great question. I think it's a tough one, because I struggled with it when I was having to balance that, hitting the number of dials, sending the right number of emails a day. But what was the guiding light, or what really helped me, was using it as an exercise to learn, using it, like entering that process with just genuine curiosity, trying to learn as much as possible and having fun with it. Because when you're having fun with something, you often will be more willing to spend more time doing it, right? So I think that the first thing is, as I said, work on your profile and make it as fun as possible. Try and be a little bit different. And then it's trying to build those habits of, sending connections. And there's work that you can do, as people do when they're trying to prep for a cold calling block. I typically, harvested all my numbers in advance so I could literally enter that cold calling block and just dial. And it's similar with, the connections. You can do a lot of work on Sales Nav to build out your target lists within each account. So you've got it ready, and then you can just go through and make a habit of connecting with people. And it's just, I guess, I just, any opportunity I got, so if I was waiting for a call and someone was a little bit late, I'd jump on and send some connections out. Again, trying to have fun with it. I mean, one of the things that I do at the moment is within my connection message is include a joke that's relevant to their business and what their business does. So, for example, I was targeting a business that does packaging and labelling. So the joke was I started writing jokes on the labels of my OXO cubes. They turned into a real laughing stock. And OXO cubes are stock cubes, and it was a terrible joke, but it
works.
Yeah. Exactly, I know. And then creating content, I would just almost have like a little journal of the little things that happen throughout the day that might make it as a good piece of content. So when I'm having those really down days, feeling really uninspired, tired, I've got some content as backups that I can pull in, and it's just about sort of building those habits.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that? Let me start differently. I think there's a feeling of social selling is a thing, and we all need to do it, and then we try it, and then we stop again. And some people really crush it, right? Like you did, and some people are really working through it, and then there are others that are struggling with it, and they do something, but it's not their main thing. The question is, do you see social selling being something like a category of, let's say, tasks, or maybe even a department or something like that will actually focus on social selling, such as people are focusing now on writing blog posts and on doing LinkedIn ads?
Yeah, so look, I think that there are businesses out there that are taking that approach and creating a sort of dedicated social selling function. I know that Henkel are rolling out something similar. And look, I'll preface this with to social sell effectively is to embody the roles of a number of sort of functions. So you've got, the demand gen piece, content marketing, as you mentioned, and sales. The issue that I have with having a sort of dedicated function for social selling is that it almost sort of defeats the object. Because to truly implement social selling, it requires each individual to be really clear about why they are on social. That's, of course, maybe aligned to the sort of overarching strategic objectives. And it requires them to actually do the stuff rather than have someone else do the stuff and put it into an advocacy tool or, a sales cadence for them to just go. And look, the dating analogy works really well here. If you're out on a date, you're really getting on with this person, you're hitting all the right notes, you're really hitting it off, you get up and go to the toilet, and I come back. My tone of voice is different, my experiences, my knowledge is different, my passions are different. So, this other person's obviously going to get up and leave. And the thing about social is you're building those real relationships, not just sales relationships, real relationships. And obviously, that different tone of voice is going to throw someone off. And what social or what digital basically enables us to do is to add an element of scalability to that process of creating conversations and building those relationships. As people buy from people, and people want that human connection, right? So yeah, I struggle with the idea of social selling becoming a dedicated function.
Mm-hmm. So it will be more something like just the task as itself that will be incorporated into our sales world. So let's say, right, you do cold calling, you do cold email, you go to, I don't know, trade shows and stuff like that, and you do social selling. It will just be an exercise rather than a function.
Yeah, that's how I see it, and that's how I sort of believe it to be very powerful.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I see. And then you said something about scalability, right? And building relationships and stuff like that. I think that makes a whole lot of sense. But then I see the sales managers that are looking at spreadsheets and dashboards and I don't know what. And they think like, hey, actually you are out there building relationships, but how does that impact your number? And I think this is something that people are thinking about when they start with it, because once it's up and running, there's no question anymore, right? Because you will have proof points. But in that moment where you want to start, how do you actually justify that people will start building relationships and do social selling, which will take them maybe half a year until they really see these results that everyone knows that are coming from social selling?
Yeah, so look, it's challenging for businesses because and individuals alike, right? Because it is a complete sort of behavioural shift and sort of mentality shift, but it's one that I think is required as a result in the shift in buyer behaviours, right? So Winning by Design, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the business. Their founder, Jacko, recently shared a post that win rates have dropped to 17%. You know, there's other research out there that, you know, these traditional methods aren't as effective as they once were. People aren't showing up as frequently for the meetings that were booked over the phone. You know, emails aren't being seen as much. So I think that there's only so much value in sending a whole load of, you know, tailored emails or hammering the phones, because, you know, it is becoming less effective. And you know, in best case scenario, that approach where you're leading with insight, looking to grab someone's attention, will at best appeal to between 3 and 5% of your total addressable market, right? Those that are in market, you know. But by that, and that sounds great, you know, 3 to 5%. Oh, you know, great. There's you know, a decent set of fish in the pond. But,
I take it.
Yeah, but the thing is, by that point that they're in market, it's already too late, because they've completed a vast amount, you know, of their buying journey. So Gartner and Forrester, respectively, found that a buyer will have completed between 57 and 90% of their journey before they make themselves known to a seller. So basically, by that point, they've defined purchasing criteria. They've created their short list of potential vendors that they're willing to work with. Each member in the decision-making unit probably has a favourite or a preferred vendor of choice. When that RFP is released, it's likely that one of your competitors has helped them to write it, so it leaves us at even more of a disadvantage. So we really don't have much time to influence the decision that they arrive at. So I think one of the stories that we tell is in the shape of Top Gear. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Top Gear. I think there was a German version at one point.
I know there is something out there, but I have never really looked at it.
Yeah, so Top Gear is it's a British automotive show, British car show. And there's a really lovely metaphor in it for how we build relationships in the modern world, right? So prior to 2002, the show was essentially just this sort of magazine show. There were two hosts. Cannot for the life of me remember their names, which sort of proves the point that I'll come on to. But they'd review cars, and it was just, you know, a series of video articles, so not massively engaging. And then a trio came along in the shape of Jeremy Clarkson, James May, and Richard Hammond. And they basically just changed how the whole show operated. So if I think back to some of my favourite moments, I remember very little about the cars themselves. But what I do remember is where they were, the activity that they were doing, and how much fun they were having while they were doing it, right? So it serves as this distinction that we've actually moved away from product and we've moved towards personality. So I think, and this is something that's mirrored everywhere we look, right? So the world of sports, Nike, I think last time I checked, they have about 8.5 million followers. But if they want to sell tennis gear, they're going to go to the likes of Serena Williams, who's got about 11 million followers. Basketball gear, they'll go to LeBron James, who's got 50 million followers, I think. And football gear, they'll go to Ronaldo, because he's got just shy of 100 million followers. So I think, and they're all B2C examples, right? But it's ringing true in the B2B space, because nothing that we sell can be sold via, even the most beautifully designed piece of marketing collateral, or the most well put together website. It's all based on conversations, right? So what social is a way of industrializing the process of having conversations, building those relationships, and then generating pipeline and revenue in the end. So, I use myself as an example. And as I said, I've really been dedicated to the process for 3 months now, let's say. So I am consistently, and look, I just reaffirm the fact that I've got 3 years of experience in B2B sales, right? 2 years was hammering the phones and sending emails, and obviously this past year or 6 months or so, I've been dedicated. I'm getting consistently an average of 10 new meetings per week, right, which is fantastic. So that's a 9% conversation rate. So 9% of the people that I ask for a call will show up on that call. They'll not just take the meeting and then no show. They'll actually show up on the call. And even more importantly, 25.7% of those calls are then moving to next steps, confirm next steps. And I had a conversation with a gentleman the other day who basically, I told that story to, and he said, yeah, but what are they? Are they, by the time you get on the call, are they MQLs? Are they SQLs? And I said, well, they're neither. I'm just having the conversation. And he said, well, that's pointless. You're wasting your time, right? I said, but am I? Because literally a quarter of those calls that I'm having move on to next steps. So there's a confirmed action. They've become an opportunity, essentially, right? So, it's an investment of time and effort. And as I said, it's a real change in behaviours and mentality. But I think it's one that's very much needed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I see. So this is not something where someone would say, hey, I just make another column of how many LinkedIn connections did I get or something like that, right? You can measure through everything. But as you said, I think this is a good mind shift that you just mentioned, going away from saying this must be labeled as, right? This is also the attribution, right? This is coming from social. This is coming from this one white paper. This is coming from a cold call, right? But rather saying social selling is something that fuels all the other funnels and is one in itself. But you have to get away from this sort of measuring it, because I also think there's one analogy that I heard where a colleague of mine actually said, it's like golfing, right? We used to go out and to the golf course and do whatever we do there, and then we get back, and 3 months later, someone that we met there will buy something maybe. And this is like the modern way, or this is like the traditional way, and now social selling is the modern way of golfing, actually. Do you see this being true somehow?
Yeah, so I think the way I envision social selling is the traditional methodology, or the traditional sales funnel, was based on it's basically predicated on waste, right? So you put a whole load in the top, Some people see you, some people might be interested, some people might talk to you, some people might actually want to buy. So for every 1,000 people you put in the top, maybe one becomes a customer. So it's incredibly wasteful, and the terms that have been bred off the back of it, like burning contacts, where you contact someone so much trying to get a meeting or trying to push them through, that you can't. You can no longer, you can no longer contact them without harassing them, essentially. Whereas the modern way is flipping that funnel on its head. So it's this idea. So you're creating content that is engaging, that's human, that's authentic. You're sharing that out to your network, right? Your network are then advocating that out to their network by engaging with it. And their networks may even advocate it even further out to their network. So if you have a really successful post, you'll see, a group of first degree connections, those you're connected with, group of seconds, those that are connected to your connections, and even thirds. So the content's basically got out of your immediate network. And this is basically growing your visibility, growing your influence to an extent. And obviously those people that engage with the content, it's an actionable thing to do. You can follow up with them. Thanks for liking my post. I really appreciate the support. How's your week going? And then you're starting a conversation. Those that you're not connected with, obviously you can then use that as an excuse to send a connection. So it's this idea of, rather than going out and hunting your prospects, it's trying to encourage your buyers to walk towards you. So whenever they have a question, which inevitably they will, or whenever they're about to enter that consideration phase, you're top of mind. You're the first person they turn to ask that question.
I see. For everyone that's listening right now and not seeing the video on YouTube, first of all, go to YouTube and follow this channel, because I'm starting to upload the episodes there as well. But actually, Jordan just showed the funnel where it's like a whole lot of ways. And then the pyramid was where I said, actually, it's being this now. So this was a pyramid. I'm just trying to translate to people that are listening right now. So 100%. I totally see that. And I have a lot of proof points already where I see it for myself, but I think really corporates really need to go down that path, and therefore I think the job that you are doing is, of course, one that is having demand, and also something that will help all of us be better at what we do, because I think 90% of people that are doing it hate cold calling, hate cold emailing. We have to do it, and it somehow converts, and it's easy, sort of. Takes less upfront work maybe, but it's not something that will take us through the next decades, I guess. So with that being said, we are way over time, but I really enjoyed this conversation, John. I really learned a lot from you. So is there anything you can leave here for people to follow you, to go out and reach out? I guess it's LinkedIn, but the stage is yours. What do you want to say?
Yeah, LinkedIn is the best place to reach out. I'm also on Twitter, @_Jordan _Abbott _. And also I've started a TikTok account called The Sales Poet. So feel free to check that out. And again, that's sort of blending the acting with sales and telling a story in an outside of the box way.
Nice. This is the very first thing I would do now. Check out your TikTok channel, because I really tried to do something there. I'm horribly bad, but I think there's something that I can learn from you. So I will go there now. So, Jordan, thanks a lot for coming on the show, sharing all your insights and also your background, your story. It was really insightful for me, and I guess for everyone that is watching and listening. So thanks a lot for being here, and see you next time.
Indeed. Thank you for having me.
Bye-bye.